All right, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone here today. You know, the NAIRR started with a vision, and that was a vision that in this time of dramatic technology change and disruption, that it was absolutely critical, that it was essential that the research and the education communities be able to contribute to those foundational discoveries, those translational and application impacts that drive all sectors of our economy. And really to do what this community does best, which is to train the next generation. And with the partnership of the people in this room today, we set off on a proof of concept. I will note it was an untested proof of concept when we started 2 years ago, that could we come together and provide the critical resources and services to really unlock the ingenuity of the research and education communities. Recognizing that it was just too critical of a time not to tap all the talent that we have across our country. So we set off to do a pilot, and I can say 2 years in, we didn't do a small pilot, and we didn't do a narrowly focused pilot, and that is really because of the overwhelming support of everyone in the room here today. Our private sector partners have made significant and ongoing contributions. Our agency partners have been engaged through the NAIRR Steering Committee for the last 2 years, and I will say that does not always happen with interagency groups. And you know, our NAIRR pilot operations teams have been fantastic. They've taken a small amount of direction and just sprinted to provide the services to the community. And I also want to thank our NSF program officers. I want to call out Al Suarez, Sharon Geva, Wen Tung, and Marlon Pierce, who have just been absolutely fantastic and are been working around the clock on the NAIRR. So in the last 2 years, the people in this room have demonstrated the concept of the NAIRR and built momentum for this program, showing not only immediate science impacts and the demand for resources, but I would say also the demand for a community, the demand to share and the urgent need to share expertise and know-how across domains. And so you are the budding NAIRR community students. This is for you, that you are the future. And we're now at this critical phase where we are transitioning from the NAIRR pilot to the sustainable NAIRR infrastructure. So with that, what I'd like to share with you now are a little retrospective, looking back on the last 2 years, what's changed and what's new in the NAIRR, and then also looking forward and where we plan to go from here. All right, well, you've heard from Brian and Sahal, but I will start, if you're new to the NAIRR, with the broad vision. The vision of the NAIRR is to provide an infrastructure for the research and education communities to drive AI innovation and discovery. And we know there are significant challenges around computing and computing access. The NAIRR was envisioned to be a really holistic program that would provide researchers and educators not only the computing access, but access to data sets and models, the tools, and really critically, the expertise and the user support in order to be able to use these critical resources. And so there's 4 key goals for the NAIRR that we've laid out. One was to accelerate AI and AI-powered innovation, to train the next generation AI workforce, increase the capacity and integration of world-class resources from both the private and public sector, and to advance AI interpretability, security, and trust. As you heard, the NAIRR is a priority for this administration. The NAIRR is called out prominently in the AI Action Plan, and also the 1-year highlights from this administration. And the AI Action Plan calls for NSF to build the foundations for a sustainable and scalable NAIRR, and that is what we are doing. To give you a 2-year retrospective of the NAIRR in one slide, let me share how this all started. We started 2 years ago really building strong public and private partners. We reached out to our private sector partners, different agency partners, and had contributions from all of these entities. And we really spent the most of the first year of the pilot really loosely integrating these resources and making them available through a common portal, nairrpilot.org, where researchers could request and access resources and get matched to kind of the appropriate resource, whether that was from the public or private sector. And at this point, NAIRR is supporting over 600 different projects, supporting 6,000 different students across every single state in the country. And I'll note, I think we have representatives from 49 states here today. We are missing Alaska, who apparently the University of Alaska is on spring break. So they are not here. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do spring break in DC, but we'll get them next time. Okay, so that was sort of, year one, 9 months into the pilot. And then we really started to build out different pathways, right? Reaching out, funding projects that are reaching out to new communities to train and educate the communities about the NAIRR. We funded demonstration projects, infrastructure demonstration projects that were using and developing infrastructure in novel ways. We launched the NAIRR Classroom Initiative because we heard constantly from educators that this is great for the research teams, but I need some help in my classrooms as well. And then in the last 6 months, we've really been turning to lay the foundations for a sustainable and scalable NAIRR. We released a solicitation for the NAIRR Operating Center. We have, we're integrating more data resources and data infrastructure and really preparing for the future. If you'd like to learn more about this, you can check out the NAIRR Progress Update document that was just released last week. It describes in much more detail what's happened in the last 2 years with the NAIRR. I want to acknowledge our agency partners and our private sector partners that have been fantastic to work with. They have contributed not only computing, I'd say that's one aspect, but what's been incredibly valuable is the contributions of expertise, the partnerships, the different tools and models and data sets that we brought together into kind of this holistic program here. And I also want to note, this is a real true public-private partnership. This isn't a public-private partnership in name only. When you look at the projects that are supported by the NAIRR, you can see the contributions of our partners, and they are very real and meaningful, and we appreciate their continued engagement. There are hundreds of science highlights, and you're going to hear about so many of them today, the different tracks and breakout sessions. I'm just going to highlight 3 right here, today, now. And the first one I want to highlight is from a researcher from University of Alabama, Sujit Roy, who was developing a foundation model for heliophysics. This work is supported by NASA and NSF. And the research challenge here was really how to improve the accuracy and reliability of space weather predictions. And so this researcher was matched with the NVIDIA DGX resource, where he and his team had dedicated access to this resource for a few months, had a lot of engagement with the NVIDIA experts, and developed this foundation model that really enhanced the weather forecasting capabilities for space weather. This model and the data sets are now available through Hugging Face. And I last talked to my NASA colleagues and looked at the data. And the model had been downloaded over 2,000 times, many by industry that are leveraging and using some of the outputs from this research. On kind of the other side of the spectrum, I liked how Brian Stone described, the far reaches of the universe to the tiniest organisms under in the oceans. What we see through the NAIRR pilot is research spanning all different domains, and this is research from a researcher, Zoe Chen, at Cornell University, and she was really looking at a fundamental question of how can you better understand how AI agents perform different spatial reasoning tasks. And so she and her colleagues built a 3D simulation environment for spatial reasoning called NotGym, which was looking at how these agents can tie and untie knots. And what they found is different models and agents did pretty well kind of at untying knots, but if you got into any type of knot complexity, they did not perform very well. This was research that used the UT Austin Frontera system and the Delta system at UIUC, and the work was presented at the NAIRR conference in December. I also wanted to highlight some work from the education community. This is some work by a researcher at Arizona State University that was looking at investigating how AI can be used in personalized education. And what was really interesting, so this researcher and her team were looking at a physics example of how can you teach students about position over time using embodied AI with a cell phone. But the research really comes in on how do you provide that right feedback to students, right? You don't want to just give the answer. You have to have the AI, pose questions that make the student, think about how to learn these concepts. And so she used resources from AWS as well as the Claude model through the NAIRR pilot to develop this tool. Okay, so what's new in the NAIRR in the last year? I wanted to reflect on what we heard last year. Last year's meeting was fantastic. We had so many students and educators and researchers here. And this is some of the feedback that we heard from all of you. We heard we need a faster and easier way to get started and experiment with these resources. We heard from you that we need more onboarding and support help. We need more office hours. We need more mechanisms to work with experts. What else did we hear? We heard that the community could really benefit from mentoring programs and support for smaller institutions and how to make competitive submissions. We heard constantly about data infrastructure challenges, data challenges continuing to be a pain point and a challenge. And we heard issues around how to work with data that needed enhanced privacy and security infrastructure. And finally, I think my favorite comment from the meeting last year was, how can we go from this shopping cart approach to resources to building a more integrated ecosystem? So I wanted to share some of the progress I think we've made in the last year. I know that NSF folks, we have our ears out. We're listening to the feedback. Our operations teams, they're listening on how we can improve the NAIRR for the community. So the first is that over the last year, compared to last year, there are significantly expanded trainings and office hours and user support. So you can go to nairrpilot.org, help, and see many different opportunities to engage with and sign up for different workshops or see videos from past workshops. You can request time to speak with an expert as well. There's also a new startup track where you can very quickly, in less than 1 week, gain access to a very small amount of resources for a short period of time. The next thing that was new from last year is that we made awards through our NAIRR pilot expansion, Dear Colleagues letter. And so there's about 20 different NAIRR pilot expansion awards. Maybe some of you are part of that community here. And I'm just gonna highlight 2 of them here. One of them is outreach regionally in Iowa. And this awardee is working with the different colleges in the state of Iowa to provide kind of summer programs and seminars for how researchers can learn to use these NAIRR resources. The project on the right is a really interesting project. The PI is Marianne Lung from Sustainable Research Pathways. And this is an effort that is matching students and faculty, often from smaller colleges or first-generation scholars, with NAIRR with NAIRR pilot research teams over the summer for internship programs. I'm curious, is anyone here part of that summer matching program? Can you raise your hand? Okay, good. Actually, I can't see many hands because the lights are really bright. Okay, and so the next thing we started in this last year was an opportunity for researchers to work more deeply with some of our partners on the NAIRR. And we heard this actually from our private sector partners too, as they really like a mechanism to work more closely and deeply with a smaller number of teams. And so we launched the Deep Partnerships track. And this is, again, an opportunity for a smaller number of teams to really engage with researchers with our different partners. So there is a panel tomorrow at, I think, 11 a.m. where you can hear about this first Deep Partnership track. We also have an open Deep Partnerships call right now. So you can, if you go onto the NAIRR pilot website, you can see the open opportunities under that Deep Partnerships track. One is with the National Secure Data Service. That is a way that researchers can gain access to statistical data in a secure way. So if that's in your research area, I would take a look at that. Another opportunity is with Lexset. This is a really interesting opportunity for collaboration. They have a tool that will can create synthetic data. If your research requires an augmented data set, I would really check out that Deep Partnership opportunity. And then OpenMind has an opportunity around privacy enhancing technologies as well. And then I'm excited to announce also coming soon, opening April 15th. I'm told it's going to be April 15th. There will be an opportunity for researchers to apply for large-scale science, deep partnerships through the Leadership Class Computing facility. This facility is just coming online now and is going to provide a significant amount of compute capabilities, GPU access for the research community. So if you have large-scale needs, this is something to track. Let's see. Another thing we heard from the community was around the challenges around data, and so we really wanted to take a step in the pilot in enabling the research communities to contribute data sets to the NAIRR. Now this is tricky, and of course there's thousands of scientific data sets across the country. What we did here is really stick, I think, a toe in the water to see what is the mechanism we could use to enable the communities to submit data sets. And so what we did is we focused on data sets in a call to the community that were focused on education use cases. So are there data sets that would help a newcomer to the community get up and running? So if you're an educator out there, you're thinking about what you may want to use in your classroom, there are a number of data sets available now through the NAIRR pilot. Some are really lightweight. Just call out there's like AI for shipwrecks data set from the Great Lakes. It's only about like a gigabyte, so it's small. It's something you can use in a classroom. I personally didn't know there were so many shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, but there are, and you can train models for them too. Next, we also heard folks were having a lot of challenges when they were doing research with with data sets that needed a higher level of security. And so our colleagues in the Department of Energy Office of Science and NIH have been leading the NAIRR Secure Working Group throughout the duration of the pilot. And they have been working on 3 pretty large-scale demonstration projects. And tomorrow afternoon, there will be a panel there where they're sharing some of the lessons learned from the NAIRR Secure effort. And I would encourage you to check out that panel if you're working with data that needs like a higher level of security or protection. And then finally, I think we've made some progress moving from the shopping cart model of resources to integrating resources together. One of our NAIRR demonstration projects, the National Data Platform, is really integrating some of the data sets that I just highlighted, as well as really kind of a lightweight ways to launch notebooks and provide access to educators and resources. So I'd encourage you to check out some of our demonstration project highlights as well today. Okay, then looking towards the future directions for the NAIRR. I mean, we are just thrilled at where we are today. I think we've demonstrated the pilot. I think we've outgrown the pilot here, and we are moving from this pilot stage to what I call this phase where we're in the NAIRR foundations. And through this, we are planning to award a NAIRR operating center this fiscal year. Fingers crossed, it will happen this fiscal year. And that will really help us be the foundation for scaling the NAIRR, and that operating center will manage the day-to-day operations of the NAIRR. I would expect next year at this time, you'll be hearing from the director of the NAIRR Operating Center on the state of the NAIRR. And from there, we'll have the foundations to really be able to scale the NAIRR. Of course, that will depend ultimately on kind of funding that our stakeholders provide to us, but we're going to be prepared to scale up, providing more services to the community, integrating resources, and training the next generation. A couple of our thrust areas for next year include integrating more data resources and data services into the NAIRR. We are also very seriously looking at how we can support the next generation of community data sets that will provide discoveries across different fields. And we are also really seriously looking at creating educational hubs across the country where students can really gain hands-on access to resources a lot earlier in their career. So with that, we are just thrilled at the state we are here in the NAIRR, and with all of your support here today. We have learned so much from the last 2 years of the NAIRR pilot. And so if I stop and kind of reflect on where we have come, I think this public-private partnership model that we have put together has been incredibly beneficial. And it's something, I don't think the public sector, we could have done this alone. I don't think the private sector could have done this alone either. It's really taken a partnership in order to move forward. Another key lesson learned is all of you have huge demands for resources. We know that, we feel it. We're working to scale to meet all of your requirements. And we see the demand for resources, but also ultimately the demand for and need for knowledge sharing, expertise, and to help beginners and newcomers really learn how to use these resources. So we heard you there as well. We know data access and remains a central challenge. We're working on some programs in that area. And finally, and we could use all of your help in making sure that we can measure the impact, share the benefits, and the results of the NAIRR work with the broader community. So I think with that, I'm happy to take some questions from the community here. And then after that, we'll hand it back to Lauren and Dana.
Thank you, Katie. So we have microphones here in the aisles where during the plenary session Q&A, you can walk up to one of those microphones. If it's easier for us to bring you a microphone, we can do that too. But any questions for Katie? You can line up at these microphones. Feel free, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie, for the overview. My name is Biplab Srivastava from University of South Carolina. I'm just wondering, with respect to the new initiatives and the data sets, community data sets, as you were mentioning, what kind of licensing are you thinking about? Because one of the concerns which I have seen is that communities have their unique data sets. If they contribute, do they lose control over it, and things like that. And that's what they think is very precious for them, and maybe the context around it is probably used. So any thought around licensing or what kind of control those communities can have? Thank you.
Right. So in the pilot, we really focused on open scientific data sets, or data sets that really would benefit from more users or community engagement. I think that is a continued focus on the NAIRR. It's a focus of the White House on open source and open models and open data. We know there are challenges with secure data sets, and so we have a few pilots going in that area. But I think we will probably lean towards more open data sets. I'll note, it was really interesting. We worked with the interagency working group on, what were the criteria we were going to use to judge if a data set could be accepted into the NAIRR. And it brings up obviously many questions, but what we really focused on was transparency. So we didn't say you had to have this metadata standard. We said, please describe what your metadata standard is. And we didn't say your data had to meet some quality metric. We said, describe what quality measures you have taken to for this community or this data set before it's submitted, so that the reviewers could assess that. And I think one of the questions is, what are the access mechanisms, or what are the access? So I think we're leaning towards transparency and disclosing that to the research community.
Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Katie. I know it's a interagency effort, but to ask an inside NSF one, one thing I kind of was struck with was I didn't see a lot of the large facilities represented, which could be notoriously difficult ships to turn and to get new things. Is there any thoughts or ideas of how some of the other big NSF investments could align and leverage NAIRR?
So the major facilities at NSF. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that question. So, I think maybe for those who aren't familiar, NSF funds and supports many major facilities across the country, whether these are telescopes or detectors, and how could they use those resources. Yeah, thanks for those questions. They're absolutely in scope. I think we do have users probably in this community that are from those facilities. I do think that might be interesting in the future to see if there's a particular mechanism we can use to reach out to them more. One of them might be through the CI Compass community, for example. I think that's a good point.
Things are moving so quickly in artificial intelligence. What does success look like for NAIRR in, say, the 1 year to 5 year time frame? Is it measured in terms of number of people affected, or collaborations facilitated, or what do you see as the KPI that indicates that the project has been successful? Yeah,
thank you. So the pilot, I would say, was a proof of concept. And at this phase, we're moving towards, the sustainable NAIRR, and how to measure those outputs will be really key and important. Something we're also looking at right now is bringing in an external evaluation entity to independently assess the impacts of the program. So the outcomes we're looking at really follow those 4 key goals of the NAIRR. So, the first is driving AI-powered discovery. And so for that, we look at high impact science outcomes. We also do look at publications. I think sometimes that can be very abstract to describe that to stakeholders. So really some of the high impact science outcomes. The second goal is really training the next generation workforce. And so there, we would look at, students that are supported through the NAIRR. We'll also we're looking at a mechanism of, can we track kind of students over time, and do they end up in a better, if they came through the NAIRR or different programs, do they end up in better jobs, or have other contributions that non-NAIRR participants have not. That can be a little tricky to measure because of kind of the drop in the bucket challenges. The third goal was around integrating public and private sector resources. That's a little easier and quantitative for us to measure. And the fourth is, I would say, the trickiest, which is advancing AI interpretability, trust, and security. So in that sense, I think we will look at the projects that we have funded in that area. Have we made a dent in to advance those fields of interpretability and trust? We're also, one thing we're tracking is startups that come out of NAIRR pilot users, and I think we have our first breakout startup from a NAIRR-supported researcher. So I hope that helps. I think it's something we're developing. We'll develop with an independent team as well, evaluator with the operating entity. I think you have to go to the mic.
It's very good to have meeting like this, yes? But between meeting, how to find colleagues that work with the same problem what I work? Do you have something like journal? I don't know. Between meetings.
Oh, between meetings.
Between meetings, yes.
Okay. Yes, you don't want to just talk to each other once a year. I think there's a number of events that the NAIRR pilot teams are putting on to try to keep the community connected. There's NAIRR pilot showcases that are once a quarter or so, and some different ways to engage. There's not a NAIRR journal, if that was your specific question.
Thanks, Katie. Last year we saw a visual of the different domains the projects are in: agriculture, astronomy. Does that visual exist somewhere? Are we going to see it this week? I think that was something that stuck out to me, and to see the growth from year 1 to year 2 in the different domains, that'd be helpful for the federal agencies, I think.
Sure, yeah. So I think Dave Hart, who's in the back, he's going to include that in his presentation. I actually looked at Dave's slide, so I didn't use the same graphics. I will note, many researchers put their self-labeled category as AI, but then when you kind of read the abstract, you saw it was for a biomedical application. So Dave, I believe, used AI to, instead of the human categories, to create that graphic. And we're happy to get USDA like that, that breakdown too.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, John May, USC. Speaking related to the request for support and community between meetings, I'm wondering if you'd consider something like a Slack workspace or Mattermost or a Discord channel. I found that in a number of other projects, a modest investment in that has helped for people to, have random questions about engagement, and also for you to be able to push to a targeted community in a way that's different from like just seeing email blasts about, various initiatives, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm going to let maybe someone in the operations team can answer that. Is there
there's a Slack workspace?
Yeah, I think there's something. Here, I'll give it to Shelley. Shelley leads our user engagement.
Yeah, we already have a Slack channel that is populated from folks who have, and I should pass the mic to my deputy director, Alana Romanell, in the back, but there's a Slack channel and you can join it, and what we can do is provide a QR code or something along those lines, send out an invitation if we can get the email addresses for the folks from this meeting, and I think some folks are there, so already.
Yeah, if you could put it into the app or something, we'd probably all be able to.
Yeah, I don't know if I know how to do that, but we'll get it to you.
We'll get it. Yeah, no, this is a great great first connection. So.
Hey there, Brandon Kellogg from CUW Wisconsin. My question is, how would educators who are newer to the NAIRR program, what's the best way that we can get involved with some of the resources or the pipeline to getting involved with some of the cool things that you're offering quickly and efficiently?
Right, so there's a number of resources that are available through the NAIRR Classroom initiative where you can get resources for your classes right away. Then there's different, if you go to like the help section on nairrpilot.org, you can get connected to a lot of the support teams that can get you into the right, it sort of depends on what you want to do, but that inroad on the help and support team is probably a first place. And then maybe meeting different colleagues here today can give you some ideas. There was a tutorial session, yesterday, and I guess it's already today, so you can't go to that one. But I think you can talk to the folks that maybe led some of those tutorials on getting started.
I'll add, we're also planning to reach out to tutorial presenters who I haven't spoken with verbally yet to ask if you'd like to provide us with a URL through which folks could access all of the materials through your tutorial, and we can make that available through the proceedings for the conference. I got a lot of nods and agreement on that. So you'll have an opportunity to distribute your materials if you're interested.
Hi, Manaswita from Harvard. So I just wanted to understand if there is a breakdown or do we have a sense of how efficiently the resources are being utilized through these NAIRR programs that could potentially help us decide how much to scale? Because launching jobs is different than being able to utilize GPUs efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all know probably some resources are not, using every single cycle on the system. That is kind of the reality, and having our resource provider teams at the advanced computing centers be able to really work and support researchers to make sure you're using those resources efficiently, helping improve the performance. That kind of happens at the resource provider level. So if you're matched with a particular system, that team there can help you. I will say I do think it's a gap. I think there's a big opportunity here for us to do more to make sure that these really expensive resources, we're getting the most out of them.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Tom Marseille from Washington and Lee University. I'm curious, as you're looking at expanding NAIRR and reaching more individuals, what are your plans for outreach, particularly around smaller institutions that may not be aware of NAIRR and just don't know what they know?
Right, yeah. I mean, awareness is a challenge, and then for those who are aware, how do they get started? So we have a NAIRR user engagement team that we're supporting. So they're doing a fantastic job. That's Shelley Knuth and Alana Romanella, who are leading that effort. And then we have also supported, I think, about 20 different outreach efforts. One is focused on small colleges. I don't know if Tracy's in the room here, but one of them is kind of focused on small and emerging research institutions. So that might be another way to get involved. Tracy, why don't you?
Yeah, so Tracy Camp from the Computing Research Association. We have 6 different groups. So depending if your institution matches one of those groups, I encourage you to look at when their conference is. And many of the investigators on these 6 different groups are here. If you could stand quickly. We have a 4-year group, so that's Jared over there. We have a Research Emerging for Smaller Programs. That's Gabby here, and I know Rhea is also there. We have an MSI group. That's Winston. There from Hawaii Hilo. Marius is here from Research Emerging Large Computing Programs. We don't have anyone here from HBCU, but we do have community college. Melanie is here. So if you are in one of those categories, I encourage you to talk to the investigator here. And Katie, thank you for the shout out to those projects.
Yeah, I don't know if those are up on the NAIRR pilot website, but we can try to make some connections there.
And yeah, they're definitely on the Computing Research Association's website. And yeah, they're on the pilot website as well. I think we have one page that links to all of them on the pilot website, or you can find it on cra.org.
Yeah, so those workshops are actually some of them are just happening now, so it's a very timely question.
And there's a panel tomorrow that will feature Tracy, and you'll get to hear about a little bit of that work on the panel tomorrow morning. All right. Well, thank you all for those questions. Dana, I think you've got one more.
Oh, yeah, PI prerogative. One more question, Katie. So one, thank you and all your colleagues. We've observed that you all have been working very, very hard lately. And I wonder, what we in this room can do to support you.
Yeah, I think there's a few things I would ask the folks in this room. One is if you can share with your colleagues about the NAIRR. So there's only so many presentations and webinars we or our operating programs can do, but we see a lot of times the word of mouth. There's like little sparks. We'll get a research request from a small school, and then we'll get 5 others a month later. So we know there's some network effects, and I think universities, there's always students coming in and out. That's always going to be a challenge. But if you can really share the resources that are available with your friends and colleagues, that would be fantastic. 2, continue to do fantastic work. When you all do great work and research, our job is easy. So stay focused on that amazing research. And then 3, I think we're in this transition phase where we will have an operating center soon, in a number of months. In the interim, I think continuing to share highlights of your outcomes with us will be really, really important. You could also share it with Dana's team too, that does outreach and communication for the NAIRR pilot. So those are some of the things I think you can do to help us. You also definitely should serve as a reviewer. Okay, and so if you have a request or an allocation through the NAIRR pilot, someone reviewed your request and proposal. And so if you can do the same, reach out to John Towns and the allocations teams. I think they're always looking for great reviewers that come in and help and support.